in the hallowed halls where legends are born and myths take on life. Welcome to Mythic Universe, a realm where cosmos-spanning tales are not just told, but lived. Under an endless canopy of stars and the eternal watch of cosmic deities, our saga unfolds with an intensity and grandeur, befitting the titanic struggles of gods and quantum beings alike. Here the boundaries of time and space shatter beneath the weight of confrontation as ancient, omnipotent forces clash in arenas beyond mortal ken. In this universe, every whisper of wind echoes the footsteps of destined champions. Every galaxy becomes the canvas for the ultimate expressions of will and destiny. It is within this backdrop that our story awakens, a narrative woven with the threads of inevitability, power and philosophy. As you journey with us through these epic chronicles, you will witness the unyielding might of true Form Darkseid, an embodiment of anti-life and the inexorable conclusion of all things. He stands as the final arbiter of existence, whose mere presence reshapes the very fabric of reality and compels the cosmos to submit to his inevitable decree. Opposite him moves Dr. Manhattan, the quantum architect of fate, a being of boundless introspection who perceives every moment as both eternal and fleeting. His luminous essence and profound detachment have given birth to miracles and tragedies that ripple across infinite dimensions. Yet as his eyes survey the endless tapestry of outcomes, a singular truth begins to emerge. Even the architect of time and space is subject to the immutable law of finality. Tonight on Mythic Universe, brace yourself for an odyssey into the heart of cosmic destiny, a tale where the clash of ideals transcends the mere collision of power. It is a story steeped in the eternal debate of order versus chaos, of free will against predestination, and of creation shadowed by the specter of oblivion. This is no mere battle. It is a philosophical reckoning, where the echoes of the past and the murmurs of the future converge to decide what must be. Prepare to witness the convergence of myth and reality as the stage is set. The warriors are drawn, and the eternal conflict beckons. Here in Mythic Universe, the legends of true Form Darkseid and Dr. Manhattan are not confined to ink and parchment. They are etched into the very DNA of the cosmos. And as the tale unravels, you will come to understand that in the end, some forces are destined to be indomitable, some conclusions unavoidable. Welcome, traveler, to a mythic saga beyond compare, where every heartbeat, every star and every moment sings the ballad of destiny, and where the final act is a triumph of inevitability itself. There is a silence older than sound. It stretches across the bleed, the canvas of unrealities that border all known existence, where time fractures and causality shatters like brittle glass. In this realm, no story is safe and no law binds. And from its deepest folds, two entities stir. Not two beings, two truths. One is Darkseid, not the avatar known to the Justice League or the echo crushed by Superman's fists. This is the true form, a metaphysical constant. He exists not in space, but as an eternal tyranny etched into the bones of the multiverse. The other is Dr. Manhattan, the quantum god, a man elevated by accident into a cosmic observer, a being who perceives time not as flow, but as pattern intricate, unbroken and cruel in its symmetry. Now the stage is being set, not in a world, but above all worlds, where concepts clash and ideologies bleed. The first divergence, tyranny versus detachment. They meet on a precipice not carved by time, but by necessity, the null horizon, a place that exists only when paradox is too great to be contained. Darkseid is already there. His presence is not seen, but felt. Reality recoils around him, warping under the crushing inevitability of dominion. The Omega symbol, not just on his chest, but behind every motion of reality itself, flickers through the folds of existence. He is not a shape. He is anti-life personified. His speech does not echo, it declares, "I am the end of purpose, the final expression of will." Dr. Manhattan steps forth, not walking, but appearing, as if he was always meant to be part of the equation. His blue glow is not light, but understanding. Every atom in him pulses with narrative awareness. He observes the god before him with neither awe nor disdain, but with curiosity, an odd thing to direct toward death itself. You exist to erase freedom. I only observe it being wasted. Darkseid does not move. Motion is for the temporary. You see everything, yet you change nothing. You are impotence clothed in wisdom. The insult does not register as pain. Nothing registers as pain anymore to Manhattan. I see every moment as one, every beginning as its own end. Your dominion is an anomaly. It doesn't belong. Then erase me. I already tried. In 1,000 futures, in 1 billion causal forks, you return each time, more absolute. You are not a being. You are a conclusion. The philosophical divide, will versus observation. Manhattan is the embodiment of the quantum observer. He believes in patterns, not purpose. Even when he manipulated the metaverse, crafting and adjusting timelines like a sculptor, it wasn't because he wanted to change anything. It was to see if change could persist. He is logic without hunger, power without direction. But Darkseid is the opposite. He is will without mercy. Not a tyrant by choice, but by definition. Where Manhattan deconstructs, Darkseid consumes. Where Manhattan hesitates to act, Darkseid defines what action is. You speak of patterns, Darkseid growls, stepping through the void, as though repetition is order. But repetition is merely the illusion of peace. I am the truth that breaks peace, the purpose behind entropy. Then purpose is tyranny, Manhattan responds, and you are its final tyrant. All choices are lie. Every universe in its desperate freedom begs for order. And order is me. It's a war not just of strength, but of ideologies. Manhattan wants a universe that unfolds like math. A place where the observer watches events with godlike serenity. But Darkseid knows better. Reality does not bend to numbers. It bends to will. And will is stronger than sight. The legacy of their feats. Darkseid's true form once shattered the very essence of the source wall, collapsing it with his presence and igniting a chain reaction that unraveled truths even the gods had sealed away. He wielded the anti-life equation not as a weapon, but as a law, replacing free will with perfect obedience. Entire multiverses fell, not in war, but in silence, the surrender of thought itself. Dr. Manhattan, in contrast, has rewritten reality. He erased 10 years from history, altering the rebirth of the DC Universe. He dismantled the very logic of causality, splitting time to create alternate fates, all without a single blast. He exists at every moment, seeing Superman's future 100 times, and choosing when to let it happen. But power isn't the measure of victory. Narrative weight is. Darkseid represents the conclusion of all things, when no more stories can be written, when all purpose has decayed. Manhattan is the recorder, the scientist, the god who watches a candle burn but does not stop it. I tried, Manhattan admits, to erase your essence in the metaverse. Every time I removed you, the multiverse cracked, as if you were the spine. Because I am, Darkseid replies. Then the universe is broken. No, it is finally honest. The inevitable draw of conflict. And now, for the first time, Manhattan does something not even he predicted. He clenches his glowing hand into a fist. I will not let your conclusion be the final line. Darkseid smiles. Not with lips, but with reality itself folding into grim satisfaction. You were never meant to let. You were meant to lose. A pulse erupts. The null horizon shakes. Time collapses into a singularity. Across infinite dimensions, watchers, gods, demons, monitors feel it. The war that ends philosophies. Not a battle of fists alone. A battle of narrative weight, of concepts, of what defines the end of all things. One sees the universe as a sequence. The other sees it as a throne. There was no sound. Not the silence of absence, but the silence of totality, where even the idea of sound was refused entry. The null horizon had collapsed. Time had crumpled. All that remained was here, the now that stretched endlessly, like a scar carved into the flesh of existence. Dr. Manhattan stood in the middle of it, his blue glow flickering with an uncharacteristic instability. Normally, he pulsed with harmony, with symmetry, with the certainty that all things aligned to a cosmic pattern. But now he couldn't see past this moment, not because the future was clouded, but because it simply stopped. This was the end of the road. Darkseid had not moved. He didn't need to. He was the battlefield. His presence alone corrupted the concept of time, making it scream in protest. He looked like a figure, tall, armored, eyes lit with infernal wisdom. But that was merely a representation, a mercy granted to the senses. The truth was far crueler. He was the archetype of subjugation, the platonic form of inevitability, the whisper that lingers in every myth, telling creation that freedom was always a lie. Manhattan's fingers flexed. Each movement could unravel stars, erase centuries, deconstruct matter to its base quanta. He had faced gods, rewritten destinies, stood outside time, but never had he faced something so absolute. He attacked. The first wave was not energy, but intention. He unspooled the quantum structure of the environment, broke down the null horizon into tachyon lattices and Higgs fluctuations. He turned the plane of battle into raw, rewritable code. With a thought, he willed entropy to reverse, demanded time to fold inward like a collapsing lung. Darkseid didn't block it. He let it pass through him. The ripple shattered across his chest and collapsed into nothingness. Dr. Manhattan blinked. What he had just fired was enough to revert a multiverse to its pre-inflationary state, but Darkseid hadn't even acknowledged it. Instead, Darkseid stepped forward, and with that single step, the architecture of all conceptual truths groaned. Dr. Manhattan fired again. This time it was force. A surge of quantum disassembly so pure, it unraveled causality like old cloth. Alternate timelines birthed and died in the space between seconds. Possibilities warped and folded. Universes flickered and vanished like dying fireflies. The quantum storm swallowed Darkseid whole. It didn't matter. Darkseid walked through it. His eyes burned, not with fire, but with the Omega Sanction, the anti-expression of choice. His gaze alone tore through dimensional membranes. The blue god recoiled as shards of meaning were ripped from his form. With every Omega glance, he wasn't just being hurt, he was being rewritten, recontextualized. Memories twisted, concepts bent. In one blink, Dr. Manhattan saw himself as a man again, naked, cold, mortal, then a child, then an idea. He struggled. He tried to stabilize himself with anchors, visions of Laurie, of the Watchmen world, of the metaverse experiment of Superman, of hope. But every image crumbled under Darkseid's will. You are a ripple, Darkseid's voice echoed across the cosmic marrow. I am the ocean. Manhattan's form flickered. His structure was disassembling at the narrative level. He tried to observe, to calculate the outcome, but no pattern emerged. That was the trick. Darkseid wasn't a player in the story. He was the ending. For a moment, Manhattan grasped at desperation. He fractured himself into infinite variants across the multiverse. In one reality, he merged with the Spectre. In another, he became the source itself. In yet another, he embedded his consciousness into every moment simultaneously, trying to drown Darkseid in sheer scale. It didn't matter. Darkseid reached across all instances. He didn't chase Manhattan. He simply defined him, reduced him across each instance into a singular truth, a delay. And delays do not escape the conclusion. Darkseid's arm rose, not an action, but a declaration. The anti-life equation wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a beam. It was a statement. There is no hope. There is no choice. You do not matter. You were never meant to. Manhattan screamed, not with voice, but with presence. He retaliated, splitting the narrative into chaos. He tried to inject free will into the Omega truth, tried to resurrect autonomy through raw force of quantum creativity. For a moment, he even succeeded, cracking a glimmer of unpredictability into the battle. Darkseid bled. The true form beyond all lesser avatars bled, not with blood, but with meaning. Stars died in agony to hide it. For a single breath of existence, the blue god thought he had found a flaw. But flaws are not endings. Darkseid stepped forward again, and with that step, Manhattan felt his story begin to decay. First, he forgot what he was fighting for. Then he forgot what fighting meant. Then he forgot what he meant. He tried to remember Laurie's face and couldn't. He looked at his hands and saw only silence. "You observe," Darkseid said, "the words made of dead timelines. But I impose. You witness the painting. I burn the canvas." Dr. Manhattan's last act of defiance was to try to see a version of this, where he won. He failed. In every possible variation, Darkseid won not through strength but through necessity. The multiverse needs him, because without him, it has no destination. He is not a villain. He is not a force of evil. He is the fulfillment of entropy's promise. He is the reason stories end. Manhattan fell, not physically but conceptually. His blue form dimmed. The last remnant of quantum thought sputtered like a dying echo. And then, finally, Darkseid spoke one last time. "You are not real anymore." Dr. Manhattan ceased. No explosion, no corpse, just deletion. The null horizon, cleansed of paradox, sighed in dark relief. The silence returned. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of dominion. Darkseid stood alone, not triumphant, not victorious, just inevitable. Because in the end, when all potential collapses, when every observer has fallen, when time has eaten itself and causality is burned out, only Darkseid is. Conclusion: Dr. Manhattan had the power to rewrite, to observe, to alter, but his flaw was detachment. He is bound by his reverence for symmetry, his passive view of time. True form Darkseid is not bound. He is the archetype of finality. He imposes will where others hesitate. Where Manhattan questions, Darkseid defines. This was not a battle of who was stronger in feats. This was the story of why some endings are inevitable. And so Dr. Manhattan lost, not because he was weaker, but because he was never meant to win.